think revolutionary in the way that you see the world is you drop the word control group.
Yeah.
And there's just such a revolution in just that simple concept. And I think that there's a lot of work to do because so many marketers bring, I think, a beautiful way of seeing the world, a beautiful way of maybe wanting to tell a human story or try to have a better understanding of human needs and communicating with customers and creating that value proposition story for a company. And those are all awesome things. It's not just about making the widgets and selling the widgets. It is about caring for that customer. And that is an awesome spirit that our marketers and our advertisers bring. And on top of that, an understanding of aesthetics and the technicalities of distribution and all of that good stuff. But that scientific language that you developed as a child, the understanding of what a control group is, and then you said hypothesis. This is not vocabulary or a philosophy that people are comfortable with. And yet, I think we share the view that this is the most important way that we need to understand the world and challenge what we believe and challenge what we even think we see with our own eyes. In your experience, what drives that fear, and what has been successful in helping you, because I know that you're working with CEOs and CMOs all over the world, all the time having these conversations. And I know a lot of them that you're talking to, are now sitting at the table, and you're not the parent. I don't mean to do that, to marginalize, the leaders that you're talking with.
The gray beard, yeah.
But now you're the one, leaning in and saying, how do you know?
Yeah.
So what's that been like for you?
I think even when I was a lot younger, I seemed to be the one at the table trying to push people down this spectrum of really having a data-based approach. And what I mean is not data-based, but data-based basis to what the belief systems were. And let the numbers and let the behaviors of what the consumer was actually doing really pave the way to inform what we should do. And I think what's interesting, I'm going to go down two tangents. One tangent is, and you can remind me if I forget one, but one tangent is down the migration where everything old is new again. What I mean by that is, when we first started working in the loyalty space and starting to shine a light on who was actually shopping and how often and what did they put in their shopping carts and what did those behaviors tell us about the dynamic of what was happening in a store, it was a world where the mindset in the retailer was really a pilot high and watch them buy. It's kind of like I have this very efficient means of communicating that chicken breasts are X and broccoli's on sale, and I put that out in the marketplace, and it costs me, a fraction of a cent to put one in every door around in the catchment area of the store. And what's been interesting is that we went through a little period where there was a balancing act on the efficiency of marketing versus the efficiency of a more data-based approach, a more thoughtful approach, where there was real value because, to your point, when it was paper-based and you're putting a stamp on a piece of paper to send out an offer to a consumer to personalize an experience, that actually cost a fair amount of money relative to a flyer. And so what happened was that you really wanted to get it right. So you did have this element of time and the ability to do test and control and understand which offers perform best and then do back tests and all this sort of direct marketing lingo that I can throw at you from way back in the time tunnel. Then we went through a period where I think digital marketing started to take off. You had the efficiency and you had the ability to do the targeting. And that was kind of the Renaissance period where all this happened. And then advertising shifted to online advertising. You had the rise of Facebook and Google and the reach and the targeting capabilities that were there. And it's almost like the flyer reborn. I think what happened for a period of time is that people were crafting a customer experience, and then they were basically hammering away through a new form of mass advertising, which was super efficient because the cost per click was nothing to throw things out in the Google sphere or in Facebook to target consumers. And I think it became thoughtless again in some ways. Do you know what I mean? There was an element, thoughtless might be too strong a word, but there was an element there of just back to pilot high and watch and buy. I can kind of push things out en masse, and if it doesn't work, I'll just do version B and version C. And what I think we're kind of seeing is a tide shifting again back to things becoming more thoughtful. Customer journey mapping, customer experience being a competitive differentiator. People really trying to understand the dynamic of the consumers, become more segmented around the micro segments that are there, and become more intelligent again. And that's kind of trending what I see actually happening. So I think that's one, is the sort of cost of media, cost of acquisition, cost of how you actually create the outreach. I think the other thing is you needed a seed change to happen in the boardroom. I remember sitting back about 2 decades ago trying to push water uphill on this idea of using data and thinking about what's really happening and doing specific targeting and testing to see which offers might resonate the most, and having a struggle in getting sometimes the dollars and cents versus the efficiency of just push it out in the flyer. And I think the interesting piece is, I remember reflecting, and the words came out of my mouth, which said, we just may need a generational change to happen in the C-suite, and then we're going to have a much easier time of pushing this through. And frankly, between alumni of the Air Miles Reward Program in Canada anyways, who have now populated many of the largest corporations and loyalty programs across the country, and a little bit of the seed change as they've sort of moved into more senior roles in all these organizations, I think we have one of the most interesting markets in the world when it comes to loyalty points, how these programs are used to architect experience, and what's actually happening. So both those things had to happen in order to get back to where we need to be. COVID's just an enhancer at this point, in my view. So,
yeah, it's interesting. I think the convergence of those two threads to where we're sitting as a behavioral economics consulting practice. Yeah. Those two threads really align very well to, I think, some of the challenges that we see. First of all, the latter point that you were making around that generational change, which is basically having people who grew up with digital and had expectations about digital playing a role in business and being comfortable with technology, not only as a channel for customers, but as a channel for business strategy through that data, is definitely something that we are dependent on as well. Mm-hmm. People who have that data science expectation. The second part is even more interesting and perhaps a greater opportunity for us. And that's the first part that you were talking about around, it's one thing to be able to put a lot of content out there, trial and error your way through it. I like to use the analogy of you throw spaghetti at the wall and you see what sticks. But what you talked about was, now we need to start to become more thoughtful about that. And so I use this analogy of where behavioral science and psychology, cognitive neuroscience, all of these things are actually help companies not just have that machine that throws a lot of spaghetti in a really efficient way, but we actually, if you really think about what this problem is, so let's deconstruct this. Let's say we want pasta to stick to the wall like wallpaper. Now we can start to operationalize this. Well, we actually know a lot about pasta. If we think about a vermicelli noodle or angel hair versus a spaghetti versus a ziti versus maybe a fettuccine noodle, we're actually going to be able to talk about the science of different surfaces. We can talk about how much starch should be in there to increase the level of stickiness. We can talk about the science of how fast and at what angle it should be thrown at. So behavioral science is loading that machine with the kinds of pasta that we already know at the right speed and at the right angle, so we can get that wall wallpapered a lot faster. So that's that thoughtfulness that comes from behavioral science.